Hey guys, welcome back to Hanging Out with Lori. How are you today? I am good, thank you. Today is another installment of Fragrance Friday, my favorite series I do here on my channel, and I love that Fragrance Friday is growing. Make sure you go check out Janine at Free the Tomatoes, Tara at Reed's Beauty Tripp, and Mel at Glitter Bling Bling on Instagram. All three of them are doing Fragrance Friday, and it's so much fun to watch their take on their fragrances. I will have their links down below for you to go check them out. Last week I told you that we would have a different type of Fragrance Friday this week, and this is a series that I will be doing throughout the year. A couple of months ago, end of October, early November, everybody was talking about how we were changing decades. And I thought, how has perfume changed over the decades? And as I thought about that, I thought, what a cool idea. Why not highlight, each decade and talk about the perfumes? I decided start with the 20s. That made sense. This is the 20s. You have perfume from the 20s and go from there. The 1920s were sandwiched between World War I and the Great Depression that hit America. Now, worldwide, many countries were having an economic boom. They were having prosperity and growth. Women were getting the right to vote in multiple countries throughout the world. Here in America, the women got the right to vote in 1920. During World War I, women had to take on the man's role. They had to go to work. They had to be the breadwinner. They had to do the more masculine things that delicate women did not do. And so because of that, women became a lot more liberated. Here they have the rights that men never thought they should have. They now work. A lot of them still worked. They blossomed into these strong, independent women that, while women may have been strong and independent prior to that, most of them had to hide that. They had to be more feminine, more demure. Women of the 20s, they cut their hair. It went into a bob. They started wearing loose dresses. No longer did they have to get cinched in to an outfit that they couldn't breathe in. They started wearing short dresses. So not only were their ankles showing, they were progressively getting shorter, in areas. But all of a sudden their calves were showing. They started to do a new style of dance. No longer was it a formal, very structured dance. It was wild and crazy, and it was freedom flowing out everywhere. And there was a new style of music that they were listening to. No longer was it structured either. The music was just as unstructured as the dance, and the women who were being themselves in public for the first time. Well-to-do women smoked in public. Can you imagine that? A woman smoking? They were in these places that had alcohol. Heavy with smoke, short dresses, letting their individuality just be out on display for everyone to see. And perfume changed with the women. It all of a sudden became more heavy, more intoxicating. It was bold. It was sexual. It was intense. There was a masculine vibe to that kind of runs through most of these fragrances. And as Jordan said, they kind of smelled like incense. That was because of a typo in a text I sent her. But it's true. They really took on a headier, more full-bodied scent. Not only did the fragrance structure change, so did the bottles. The bottles became more streamlined. They had sharper edges. They started looking kind of like what was going on in the world. Skyscrapers, cruise ships, automobiles, telephones, airplanes. When you think about them, they're all pretty straightforward. You know, they may have a little curve once in a while, but for the most part, they were straight lines. And the names no longer were feminine. They no longer were floral. They were like the women of the 20s. Concise, straightforward, told you what it was just like that. Witty. Can you imagine a perfume having a witty name? And intolerant of fluff. The perfumes of that time, they weren't going to be something, you know, feminine and flowing and pretty. They're just gonna tell you like it is. Some of the fragrances of that time were Lanvin's Arpège, Guerlain's Shalimar, Coty had Paris and Emeraude, Murray's Narcisse. Chanel kind of had its time during the 20s. It had Chanel No. 5, Chanel 22. It had another one called Les Exclusifs, I think is how it's said. We had, is it Jean or Jean Pateau, Amour. These are just a handful of perfumes from that time. But when I think of the ones that I mentioned, No. 5 is probably the most popular today, or most known today, next to Shalimar, Guerlain's Shalimar. Those are still probably the easiest to get your hands on. Yes, I realize I'm not talking vintage No. 5 or vintage Shalimar. I'm just talking about, you know, the perfume. Emeraude is easy to find, usually in drugstores. That's where I have seen it, mostly. But you can find it. It isn't as hard to find as, I've never seen a bottle of Lanvin's Arpège that wasn't at a discount store. It could be out there. I don't know, but I have only seen it in discount stores. So, there are some fragrances that are easier to find and some that are harder. I have two. Chanel No. 5 was born in 1921. it was, I believe, the first perfume to use a synthetic note. And we've talked about that synthetic note here on this channel before, and that is aldehydes. The other top notes are neroli, ylang ylang, bergamot, and Amalfi lemon. The middle notes, very floral, jasmine, orris root, and lily of the valley. And the base is vetiver, musk, sandalwood, patchouli, oak moss, amber, vanille, which is vanilla, and civetta. Now, I'm assuming civetta is civet, which is animal musk. So, Chanel number 5. I do not have the eau de parfum. I have the cologne. Now, I have worn the perfume. I have sprayed it on me at the store, and the eau de parfum is too strong for me. It's headache inducing for me. It's probably because of the neroli, because neroli does give me a headache. I've never worn the toilette. That was a hard word to get out. I have never worn it, so maybe I could wear that. But the cologne is the right balance for me. And this is a strong scent, even in cologne. Now, this is what my bottle looks like. As you can see, very, very straight and structured. I do decant this because this is a dauber. I can't find the bottle that I have it decanted in. I have had it. I had it yesterday, but where it is today, I don't know. It's probably because I changed my room around to keep the cat from. To me, Chanel number 5 is a little boozy, very sexual, very thick, not thick, very, it's very structured in its scent performance for me. It's very straightforward. It's very bold. That's the word I'm looking for. Bold. Now, these women, they didn't have a day or night fragrance. They didn't have a summer, winter, spring, fall. They had a fragrance. And so, can you imagine as your body temperature rose? This would be a more pronounced fragrance. I mean, talk about independence. Here you are working in the factory, you know, and you smell hot. You smell awesome. You smell strong and independent, and to hell with you all for wanting to wear something florally. You were just being you. The other fragrance I have is Coty Emeraude. Now, this bottle I was gifted by Tara over at Reed's Beauty Tripp, who I talked about earlier. Coty Emeraude I owned as a young teenager. I do not know how I came about owning Coty Emeraude. I do not know if it was gifted to me or if I saved my money and that's what I bought at the store. I don't know. But I was probably 13, 14, coming off of fragrances from Avon. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm talking soft fragrances from Avon to Coty's Emeraude. Now, it's hard for me to smell Coty's Emeraude without thinking of my childhood, of being a young teenager. I cannot imagine allowing my daughter to wear Emeraude at 13, you know? This is a woman's perfume. This is an independent, strong, take the bull by the horns kind of woman. And here I am, 13, 14, wearing this fragrance. But when I think about it, I was a tough kid. I was an independent kid. Despite what my mom wanted. I was the only girl in a house of boys. And I was treated as a boy. I wasn't treated like a soft feminine girl, except my brother wanted me to wear lace. And guess what? I did not want to wear lace. So I can see how Emeraude would have spoken to me as a youth, because while I was young, I was tough. I was not a wallflower in any way. I'm spitting all over myself. And Emeraude is not a wallflower scent. Both of these would be considered an Oriental today. Emeraude was born in 1921, just like Chanel No. 5. The top notes of Emeraude is orange, bergamot, and lemon. The middle has jasmine, ylang-ylang, rose, and Brazilian rosewood. The base has amber, sandalwood, patchouli, benzoin, and vanilla. Emeraude is as strong and present and bold as Chanel No. 5, but different. It's dark. It's sensual. It's heady. It has a little bit, it's sharper than Chanel No. 5 in my mind. There's a little bit of edge to it that No. 5 doesn't have. No. 5 is a little smoother, a little cleaner, if you will, where Emeraude is, it's kind of edgy. It's kind of toughness. It's more of a in-your-face kind of boldness. That's how I think of it. When I compare these two, and yes, I know this is a clone, even in the dry down of No. 5 is just smooth and boozy and creamy, where Emeraude is more brusque, more bright, more sexual. So those are my two fragrances that I have from the 1920s. I have had so much fun learning about the 1920s and the perfume of the 20s and how it really embodied the women of the 20s, which really surprised me. And maybe it shouldn't, but when I think about the perfume of today, I don't know if it embodies the woman of today. I don't know if it does. Now, that doesn't mean we don't like them, but does it really embody them? We'll have to see as we go through the decades if it does. It's going to be an interesting ride nonetheless, as we learn about these. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something from this. I hope that this interests you, because I sure as heck had a lot of fun learning about this. If you guys liked this, please leave me a comment down below. Give me a thumbs up. If I didn't mention a fragrance that you have or know of from the 20s, leave it down below so I can learn. I only mentioned a few. There is so many more that I didn't mention. that you guys probably know. Leave it down below. What fragrance from the 20s do you like or own or hate? Let me know. I am always interested in what you guys have to say. With that, I will leave it there. Please go check out Janine, Tara, and Mel. I love all three of them. They are great, great women. You guys, take good care, be safe, and I will see you on the next one.